So, yeah, I would like to start with you, Dania. Can you tell us a bit about your experience, where you're starting from, which, of course it's shown in the film, and where little by little how you gain your independence, your freedom?
I started out in church, and I always went to church every Sunday and several times a week, and started singing there too. So it actually happened when I started to gain interest in jazz music, that people got a little worried that I wanted to sing jazz in bars and stuff, because that's where the jazz was, happening. And and then I started playing in a band, but it was still a Christian band, which we saw in the movie. So, I was still holding on to that somehow. But I still wanted us to play in bars and, not just in church. And I think that changed a lot for me, to just come out of the church, because sometimes I think Christians, at least in the Faroe Islands, keep a lot to themselves, and they don't really know anything else than that. And then of course I met Trygvi, and I started studying creative writing, and that also changed a lot when I found out that I could write about anything. It didn't have to have a moral, and didn't have to praise God, everything that I write, or it can, but yeah, that changed a lot for me, to find out that everything was, I was able to write anything if I wanted to. I don't know if that's enough answer.
And then the next question to Trygvi. For you, instead, I gather from the film that it was a different experience in the sense that you weren't brought up, in such a Christian way. So, how come it didn't happen? Because it seems like the whole country is actually very dedicated to religion.
Well, yeah, it would seem like that, but it isn't really like that. I mean, there's a big secular part of the country. I mean, I come from the capital of Tórshavn, and it isn't, like, it's kind of secular. It's kind of like a relaxed church-going kind of vibe, Christmas Eve church-going kind of thing. And so it's just, but my parents didn't really try to persuade me either way. I mean, they're just like, if you want to go to Sunday church, which I did when I was a kid, like just Sunday morning church for the kids. I did that for a bit, but I lost interest and did other things. And I was at the Christian camp at one point when I was like 13 or something, and I just went to play soccer, really, to play football, and then I got like kind of scared by the concept of hell by the people there, and I was kind of worried, and I asked my sister, do you believe in God? Because that hell place sounds kind of fucked up, but then I started to question it, and I was reading the Bible, and I was like, don't know about that, and became quite like anti-religious, and like the whole thing. I went through the whole atheist thing, and kind of came back around, like in a more abstract kind of way, and I have my own personal relationship with whatever.
I think that's kind of where we met in between somehow, when I was also questioning, and then Trygvi, so we just met somewhere there in the middle. Yeah.
Can't believe I said soccer just there. I mean, that's what I'm so sorry about that.
We also say football.
I don't know what happened.
how do you, Trygvi, how do you relate to all the rappers or all the hip hop artists in the rest of the world? Because you're so special. You decided to use Faroese language, but at the same time, just reading the subtitles because I'm not totally fluent in Faroese yet, but I will. It seems like, I mean, you're on the same page in a way, to what the rest of the world is doing.
I think there are many tropes and cliches in hip hop that I wanted to disprove in a way, and come at it from a different angle, and not necessarily try to make it hip hop, but just more like focus on the words and the poetry of it, and try to make it work that way, and avoid all the tropes and even use them, but turn them around, and just a different approach to it really, and so the rappers, they don't really acknowledge what you're doing, like really. They kind of, okay, it's interesting, kind of weird, and the academic crowd maybe is like, oh, it's interesting, and not quite like written poetry in books, but no, I'm maybe painting it a bit. That was a weird way to paint it, maybe, but I definitely feel that the like hardcore 90s like hip hop kinds of guys, they're like, I don't really know about that, what you're doing, but maybe the more like cultured elite, maybe kinds of people are like, that's interesting because it's different. So it falls sort of in between, is what I'm trying to say, I think. Yeah.
It definitely does. Now I remember a couple of lines from your songs, like "Gay's the new straight" or "Hate is the new love." It's definitely a new take. Just different approach to that. So that's really interesting. Yeah, and when you're going to play, to sing afterwards, then we're going to. Well, maybe you should introduce your songs with a small sum up of what you're going. Maybe. If you want it. Anyway, let's go back to the film. When did you decide that you wanted to turn it into film? That you want, all your experience, just wanted to have. And where did you find Cecile and Maria, that were actually the filmmakers?
We met the directors. I was actually, I met the one Faroese director at Trygvi's place one time. We had just started dating or something, like 4 months, and then he was like, this director is coming over and she's just gonna film us, cuddle and stuff. But it was really weird, and I was like, okay. And then we didn't know what this film was going to be at that time. I had no idea what it was, but they were just interested in following Trygvi, and then they started following me also, and they had this idea of they wanted to show or tell a Faroese story amongst young people there, and eventually it just turned out to be this movie, but it could have been 100 different movies, because they followed us and a lot of other people for 2 years. So there are many hours which are cut.
It's a very long project, years of shooting.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think they're going to use the rest of the material?
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, that would be interesting.
It's kind of. What was happening to her was definitely the most fluent narrative. That was going on, and it was a very powerful story. that she was going through, and it happened quite like what's the word, like organically. Thank you. And that became the story, and worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very transformative story, very uplifting, and I don't know, for some reason I always feel that the film that gives a little hope, even tiny, it's better than total tragedy, because at least you go home with something. You just
Yeah, well, it depends on your view, I guess, because I've heard also other interpretations of this movie back home. People who see it as a very tragic story. Yeah, the last thing I heard was that somebody told my grandfather, who was in the movie, like, I'm so sad that you ended up in this pornographic movie. Yeah, I think they refer to the scene in underwear or something, but yeah, there are many interpretations.
Well, of course, yeah, perspective and point of view are based on culture, basically. So your culture is just very, very strict, very close. That's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So
They probably hadn't seen the film, the people who said that. It's probably like hearsay by hearsay by hearsay.
So the other thing that I wanted to ask you, it's about your book of poetry, because that's basically underlying the whole film. Basically, you started thinking that you needed to write, you needed to express yourself and tell exactly what you felt. And so how hard was it, to just bring all that out?
It was really hard, and yeah, it still is sometimes. But at that time, I was, like you heard, I had a lot of thoughts about, like, if this was too much, or should I do it this way, but I was so drawn to writing at that moment, like I had to do it, even though I was a very new writer, and I still am, and I know very well that this is not the best written book in history, but I don't know, it made sense to me, and I know it made sense to a lot of other young people who have read it, and some parents maybe. Because I didn't write it from my perspective, but more like storytelling about two young people growing up there. So, yeah, I could take in a lot of different things that I have experienced without, naming anybody, and yeah, because I wanted to be careful with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you represent a generation in that sense, right? You represent lots of different people. So yeah, it's true. So what about how Dania influenced your music, your storytelling? Yeah.
We haven't talked about this.
Yeah.
No, not like directly. Or yes, we have. Yes, we have. I mean, when you become a part of a family, of a new family, it's like and you're coming there as an outsider, and you kind of want to make a good impression, and you kind of feel bad about some stuff that you did, and that's out there and for all eternity, that you said in songs, which some people find very offensive, and they weren't. You weren't picturing. I wasn't picturing that I was going to have to defend myself in front of anyone like that. But I haven't had to, because they haven't. Dania's family hasn't confronted me with it or said anything bad to me ever. They've just been kind and accepting and nice, and taken me into their family, and so. But in terms of, I definitely think about it more now. I think about more what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, but I try not to. I want to be able to express myself without having to think too much about moral aspect of it. But still, I want my lyrics to mean something real. I mean, and not just be offensive for the sake of being offensive, because I think that's boring also. But if I need to say something in an offensive way, then I think I need to do that. Yeah, that's. But I definitely think about. I think about it more now. I think about more of the consequence. I mean, how I make other people feel.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you become self-conscious because now you've got so many different perspectives in front of you that maybe you didn't have at the beginning, but you do now because of your relationship. So.
Yeah, but I try to see it as a good thing. I mean, how can I develop myself as a writer, and with all these considerations, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I don't think so.
Well, we would like to open up to the public with a few questions. Yes, I got one over there. Please go ahead.
Thank you. That's a good question. It's still very hard to watch the movie, and I actually didn't watch it today because I've seen it a few times, a lot of times, and every time it's like really painful. Yeah, because you become very self-conscious, and you see yourself, but yeah, like you said, you also see a lot of things that are not in there, and that only I know that you don't get to see. But the movie is very true to myself, and we had a lot of saying in when they showed us the final product. They were open for any kind of criticism, so we had the chance to say, no, this is not it. So I'm happy about the final product, but of course I feel sometimes that I feel it is my story, but it's also a lot, I don't know, I've grown a lot since then also. A lot of things have changed since then, and I changed my hair and a lot of things. But yeah, at the same time, I hope that it's not just my story, but also, I can represent a lot of people back home, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's more universal than we think.
No, it's definitely is a universal story. What do you think, Trygvi?
I think it's very universal for many people in the Faroe Islands, at least. Can't really remember what the film's about anymore. Because now, I don't know how to put the moral of the story into. Oh, maybe I do. If you into a bigger context, the essence of the film maybe is to be true to yourself and do it in a proper way, do it properly while being proper to other people. That's pretty universal, but it's very universal in the Faroe Islands, this story, because Dania is trying to merge the two sides instead of putting them usually people would just fuck this shit, I'm out of here because I can't take these rules and this, so I'm just out. I'm going to do the totally opposite thing. I'm going to do the totally opposite thing of your values, and instead of doing that, Dania has integrated the two sides of society in that aspect, and she's done it in a really beautiful way. And
it's true. It's a very inclusive film because you don't judge anyone. It's not critical about anything. It's the merging. The fact that the point in which the two mentality, the two philosophy kind of meet each other. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. Any other question? Yes, please.
Yeah, I talked a lot to my parents about this, and I think what they told me at least is that they did not have the same urge to to ask all these questions. My mom, at least, she was like, she did not see where this was coming from most of the time. And I don't know if that's because of, you know, the internet and, you know, me just seeing a lot of more different lives than they have seen as they grew up. There was more, you know, they just saw the neighbors and stuff like that. I think maybe it has something to do with that they were not really that curious, at least my parents and some of them. I don't know if you have a whole different story, but they seem a lot more like fine with how they grew up, and my grandparents too. That's at least my image of their generation. I'm not gonna generalize, but
I think it also goes for them. I mean, not just for the young people, that trying to merge the two sides of society is also something that they're happy about. They're happy to see someone trying to do that instead of just creating a bigger discord and a bigger gulf.
I think they're very well aware of how they have been trying to hide a lot of things through their whole life. That they know that, you know, yeah, they've had a lot of secrets through the years, and I think that's what makes them uncomfortable is me trying to get them to tell me their secrets. Yeah.
Also.
You know, about, I don't know, they don't like to talk about, you know, if they have had any, you know, sexual relationship before they got married or anything like that. It's really uncomfortable, and for me too. but I think it's really nice to just get it out there, because it makes the whole family tense when you have so many, I don't know, yeah, like when you hold so much inside.
Yeah, intimate secrets, or you know, delicate, problems.
Repressed.
Yeah.
Something. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think our director was really interested in that, the Danish director, because she was also going through a lot of the same things with her parents, you know, them not really getting what she was doing with her life, you know, being a film director and stuff. I think it was really something that she was interested in seeing in the movie, like parents and kids trying to get along even though they disagree. And yeah, I also really wanted it to be clear in the movie that I don't have the answer for anything. This is not like, this is how you should live your life or anything, but more like, I don't know anything, and it's okay, or something like that. Yeah, that you don't always have to. Yeah, you know, as you said, there is this pressure to know everything, and you should do everything right and stuff, and just, I don't know, I got tired of it.
Rebecca?
Carly, was it again down?
I'm very bad with like year numbers and stuff, but what my sect, or what do you say, of Christianity is brethren, or or what do you call it, Plymouth, yeah.
Okay.
That's actually the kind of church.
Really? So some of the Plymouth Brethren...
Yeah, they're the worst, you know.
Sailors.
Yeah, that's...
Sailors and,
yeah.
together with some of the local ladies, otherwise you wouldn't have that. It's a very particular small set.
Yeah, it's very small, and actually, and also in the Faroe Islands, this is the smaller part. The Trygvi and almost, I think, 90% of Faroese people are Lutheran Christians. Yeah. So I think, right? You can, sure, something like that.
That's an interesting thing, because I really thought that this, what we saw on the doc actually represented the whole of the island, but no, it's just
Yeah, no, it
represents a small
doesn't really.
percentage.
No. But it feels like a lot of people, at least. Yeah, for me, it feels like the whole country, but yeah, it's really not when you. It's what I found out when I moved to the big city, Tórshavn.
Yeah, what
It's
Trygvi was saying, Tórshavn is more secular, more, yeah.
Yeah, in my village there was only 1,000 people, so felt very small and yeah, felt like the whole world for me. If someone didn't like me there, it meant the world. Yeah.
So are there other religions? So you've got the Plymouth Brethren, and then you've got.
Those are mostly it. Then we have very small percentage of Jehovah's Witnesses and maybe some Muslims. I don't know.
Few Catholics, maybe.
Catholics, yeah.
Five Catholics or so.
Yeah, maybe 5 Muslims. It's really.
They must be using contraceptive then.
They have a pretty cool church. They have the coolest church though, the
Yeah.
Catholics.
Imagery.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so too. And it was really hard for them. They had a hard time when they watched the movie first time, and it was hard. But they wanted to accept the movie and us for. I don't know. They could see the beauty in telling the truth. They knew I wasn't lying, yeah. So that's what also touched me the most, because yeah. That was definitely also my feeling after. I always had to reassure myself, like, this isn't a very strange story, it's very universal, or I keep saying universal, I don't have any other word, but, doubting, as you said, so normal, and the story should be not that hard to tell, I think.
Yeah, Pamela? Well, I think the fact that the film is traveling so much, and I think you're going to go to other festivals in other countries, that it represents itself. It talks by itself, right? I mean, this film is something that people should see, and people want to see it. So I mean, I think your parents will get this. It's not going to be a local situation in which you're showing your little city and that's it. I mean, it's becoming an international feature that's traveling.
Yeah, and they're not. I don't know if they know how much this film has been around. They don't really follow up on anything, but I think it would mean a lot, because I think sometimes they feel like they gave a lot and they, got in trouble at church and stuff for this, because we were filming in the church also, and afterward they said yes, you can film, but then afterwards they said they didn't like it, and then we actually used the footage anyway, because we thought it was important to see, and it made the relationship a little bit complicated with my parents and the church and stuff, and I think sometimes they feel like they offer.
Yeah, so there's a thing called the Board of Elders.
Yeah.
The church, and your dad kind of got kicked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah, that was serious business.
Yeah.
But after the film came out, they were kind of forced to pedal a bit back on their approach to it, because it got a very positive response in the Faroe Islands, first of all, and so they were kind of persuaded by public opinion, kind of also to, yeah.
Yeah, I think it means a lot to them when they see that, it also has a good effect on people, because if they only listen to the people at church or somewhere, then they will not feel good about
So
the.
you became politics at a certain point. You just,
Yeah.
just went over it.
More or
You're not
less.
only a local issue, but
Mm.
you become wider. Yeah, that's great. Yes.
I loved my car. I still love it. It's not thrown away because I was mad. No, it was actually, yeah. It was already, destroyed inwards, and I had to give it away because it couldn't be fixed. So we just put it in the sea and used it as a metaphor for the ending. But it wasn't thrown into the sea. We took it up again
It got picked up again.
by a fire truck.
That was a pretty cool experience though, to be able to push the car off the
It
cliff.
was the best feeling ever. That was very true, accurate. The sound I made when it was really like, I was so excited, but also just very emotional, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a primal scream almost.
Yeah.
Well, I really think that we need a big round of applause for this wonderful people. Thank you so